My wife tossed my pillow onto the driveway, saying, "You're sleeping in your car tonight. My real boyfriend is coming over." I calmly picked up the pillow and said, "Wouldn't want to interrupt your evening plans." The sarcasm sailed right over Elise's head as she stood there in her designer yoga outfit, arms crossed, checking her phone like she was coordinating a business meeting, which, in a way, she was. My wife of 9 years had just scheduled the end of our marriage between her spin class and dinner prep, with the efficiency of a corporate restructuring. "Real boyfriend," I repeated, testing the weight of those words. "As opposed to what exactly?" "Don't be dense, Nate." She glanced at her phone again. "Dylan is everything you're not. Solvent, successful, ambitious, present. He'll be here in 20 minutes, so if you could move along." I walked to my truck, tossed the pillow in the cab, and pulled out my phone. The Marriott had availability. If I was being evicted from my own house, I might as well have decent cable and a breakfast buffet. As a senior systems architect, pulling down $180,000 annually, I could afford better than sleeping in my car, despite what Elise apparently thought about my financial situation. "Nate." Her voice shifted, uncertain now. "You're not going to make a scene, are you?" "Would it matter? Seems like you've already made all the decisions here." I started the engine and backed down the driveway. For just a second, caught in my headlights, she looked almost guilty. Then her phone buzzed and she was smiling again, typing rapidly, probably letting Dylan know the coast was clear. Driving to the hotel, I processed the last 6 months with the systematic approach that had made me successful in tech. The late meetings that ran past midnight, the new lingerie that never appeared in our bedroom, the way she'd started pronouncing my name with 2 syllables of contempt instead of 1. All data points I'd cataloged but hadn't acted on, because acknowledging them meant acknowledging the collapse of everything I'd built. The hotel room was clean and anonymous. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my laptop, and did what I do best. I gathered information, 3 years at Microsoft, 2 at Amazon, now leading a team of 12 engineers at a fintech startup that was preparing for IPO. My compensation package was worth considerably more than Elise knew, thanks to stock options she'd never bothered asking about. Around midnight, my phone was still silent. No calls, no texts. Just the digital void that somehow said more than any argument could have. I ordered room service and started making lists, the way I approached any complex system problem. Break it down, analyze dependencies, identify failure points, plan the solution. My phone exploded. 47 missed calls, 15 voicemails, 23 texts, watching her panic unfold in real-time data streams. "Please pick up." "Nate, I need you to come back. This is important." "Why aren't you answering?" "He left. He just left. He saw your picture, Googled your name, and left." "Who are you?" That last message made me pause. Who are you? Like she'd been living with a stranger for 9 years. Like my name was some sort of password that unlocked a different person entirely. I typed a response. "Someone you should have asked about before tonight." Then deleted it. Instead, I turned off my phone and went back to sleep. She wanted space. She could have all of it. The next morning, I stopped by the house early to grab clothes and work equipment. Elise's car was in the driveway, but Dylan's BMW was gone. The front door was unlocked. I found her in the kitchen, still in last night's outfit, mascara streaked, looking like she'd been crying for hours. "Nate," she rushed toward me. "Thank God, I've been calling." "I know." I walked past her to the bedroom. "Did you get my messages?" "Yep." I grabbed a duffel bag and started methodically packing clothes. "Then why didn't you answer?" Her voice cracked. "I needed you." "Funny how that works." I pulled dress shirts off hangers with the same precision I used debugging code. 12 hours ago, you needed me gone. Now you need me back. Which is it, Elise? "It's complicated." "No." I turned to face her, laptop bag already packed with my encrypted drives and backup systems. "It's actually pretty simple. You wanted to replace me. Dylan saw something that changed his mind. Now you're stuck with the backup option." "That's not..." She stopped, recalibrating. I could see her PR brain working, searching for the right messaging strategy. "I made a mistake." "Several, from the sound of it." I zipped the duffel with finality. "Nate, please." She grabbed my arm. Just tell me what he saw. What did he find when he Googled you? I pulled away. Why don't you Google me yourself? I'm sure you have time now. I did. There's nothing, just your LinkedIn and some GitHub repositories. What am I missing? Maybe that's the point. Maybe you've been missing it all along. I left her standing there, still fishing for answers I had no intention of giving. But the truth was, I didn't know what Dylan had found either. My online presence was intentionally minimal, a habit from working in cybersecurity before transitioning to architecture. Just basic professional profiles and some technical contributions to open source projects. Nothing that would send someone running in the middle of the night. Miles met me at the gym that afternoon, his usual grin replaced with concern. Bro, you look terrible. Feel worse. I loaded plates onto the barbell with mechanical precision. What happened? Elise kicked me out, told me her real boyfriend was coming over. Miles stopped mid-stretch. Her real? Are you serious? Dead serious. She scheduled the affair like a sprint planning meeting, very efficient. That's insane. What are you going to do? Right now, bench press until I can't feel my arms. After that, I'm going to handle this like any other system failure. Identify the problem, assess damage, implement recovery protocols. We worked out in focused silence. Miles knew when to push and when to let things process. It was one of the reasons we'd stayed friends since college, through my dad's death, through Elise's career changes, through everything. There's something else, I said between sets. The boyfriend, Dylan something, he Googled me and fled, just vanished. Wait, what? Elise said he saw my picture, Googled my name, and took off. She's been calling nonstop, asking who I am. Miles sat down beside me. That's weird, man. What's she talking about? No clue. My digital footprint is minimal by design. I wiped sweat from my face. Professional profiles, some technical contributions, that's it. Miles was quiet for a moment. Hey, didn't you do some big project a few years back? The one where there was an accident? I stopped scrolling through my phone. The Riverside Plaza development? Yeah, when that scaffolding collapsed, the memory hit me like a system crash, sudden and complete. 5 years ago, I'd been consulting on cybersecurity for a major commercial development. During a storm, 3 stories of scaffolding had come down. 2 guys went to the hospital. One had been trapped under steel and debris, and I'd been first on scene, held the beam up while they extracted him. You think that's connected? I asked. It was a big deal, made the news. They gave you some kind of commendation from the city. I'd never promoted it. You see someone trapped, you help them. Basic human decency. But if Dylan had been there that day, I need to find out who this guy is, I said. Full name, where he works, everything. Why don't you just ask Elise? Because she doesn't get to control the information flow anymore. She made her choice. Now she deals with the consequences. Over the next week, I implemented what I mentally cataloged as Project Recovery. First, I changed all passwords on shared accounts and removed Elise's access to anything financial. Then, I called our bank and credit card companies, explained the separation situation, and got everything frozen pending legal separation. Every financial dependency we had, I systematically isolated. My lawyer, Patricia Ong, a sharp woman who specialized in tech industry divorces, walked me through Washington's community property laws during our first consultation. Everything acquired during marriage gets split 50-50 unless you can prove separate property, she said, reviewing her notes. The house? Mine before we married, inherited from my dad. Then it stays yours unless you refinance during the marriage. Never did. Still got the original mortgage terms locked in at 3.2%. Smart. What about your stock options? That's where it gets interesting. I pulled out my compensation analysis. I've got unvested options worth approximately $740,000 at current valuation, but they're tied to performance milestones I haven't hit yet. Patricia looked up sharply. She doesn't know about those, does she? She never asked about the specifics, just knew I worked in tech. This changes everything. If those options vest during separation proceedings, they become community property. We need to file immediately. I left Patricia's office feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete strategic control. Elise had made the opening move, but I was executing all the moves that mattered. While she scrambled to understand what happened with Dylan, I was systematically restructuring our entire shared existence. She showed up at my office on Thursday. I was deep in architecture review for our Q4 security audit when my assistant buzzed me. "Nate, your wife is here. She seems upset." Through my office window, I could see Elise in the lobby, overdressed and clearly agitated, drawing stares from my engineering team. She looked completely out of place among the monitors and whiteboards covered in system diagrams. I kept working for another 10 minutes, let her wait, let her understand that she no longer controlled my schedule, then walked out to meet her. "We need to talk," she said immediately. "I'm working on a deadline." "This is important." "So is keeping our security certification current." I glanced at my watch. "Unless you want our client's financial data compromised." She followed me back to my office, but I remained standing, hands on my keyboard, ready to return to work. "You changed all the passwords," she said. "Yep." "You froze the credit cards." "Yep." "You can't just cut me off, Nate. I have expenses." "And I have a lawyer handling all financial discussions now, Patricia Ang downtown. You should probably get one too." Her face went pale. "Are you really doing this? You're actually divorcing me?" "You threw me out of my own house, Elise. What did you think would happen? That I'd just accept being back up to Dylan?" "I thought you'd fight for us." Her voice rose, causing several engineers to look over. "I thought you'd show some emotion, some passion." "Interesting." I minimized my code editor and gave her my full attention. "When you scheduled your affair, was that passionate? When you told me to sleep in my car, was that emotional? Or was it just convenient?" She had no response to that. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice carrying the same tone I used for project status updates. "We're separating. Assets will be divided according to legal requirements. You get to keep all that passion and emotion for Dylan, and I get my life back." "Dylan's gone," she said quietly. "I know, radio silence since he bolted, right? He won't return calls, won't answer texts. His assistant says he's unavailable indefinitely." She looked genuinely distressed. "It's like he vanished." "Sounds familiar." I turned back to my monitor. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do." "Nate, please." "Goodbye, Elise." She stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd crack, but I kept coding until she finally left. My hands were shaking slightly when I finally stopped typing, but it felt like executing a flawless deployment. Stressful in the moment, but ultimately satisfying. That night, I met Miles at our usual place, a tech-friendly bar near the office that served decent food and had reliable Wi-Fi. He was already nursing a beer when I arrived. "So I did some digging," he said without preamble, sliding his laptop across the table. "Dylan Ross, 42, Senior VP at Pinnacle Development Group, engaged to a woman named Clara Haynes." I scrolled through the search results. "Been engaged 3 years, apparently. Big ring, bigger wedding plans." "Gets better. Clara's family owns half the commercial real estate in King County. Her dad's a development mogul. If she finds out Dylan's been cheating, his career doesn't just end, it gets obliterated." "He's been living a double life," I said, processing the implications. "Want to know the best part?" Miles grinned and opened another browser tab. Pinnacle Development. They were the general contractor on Riverside Plaza. Everything clicked into perfect systemic alignment. "Dylan was there," I said slowly. "Not just there, man. He was the guy you saved." I leaned back, letting the full architecture of the situation become clear. 5 years ago, I'd pulled Dylan Ross out from under collapsed scaffolding, held a steel beam while they freed his legs, waited with him for the ambulance. The commendation I'd received mentioned him by name, along with photos of the rescue. It was all documented in news articles that would surface immediately in any Google search of my name. Dylan had Googled me, found those articles, and realized that the man whose wife he was sleeping with was also the man who'd saved his life. The cognitive dissonance must have been staggering. "He ran because he couldn't face me," I said. "Everything he's built since that day, his career, his engagement, his reputation, it all exists because I pulled him out. And he repaid me by sleeping with my wife." "That's some heavy psychological weight," Miles observed. That's leverage. I didn't contact Dylan directly, didn't need to. Guilt was executing that process automatically. Instead, I focused on Clara, applying the same methodical research approach I use for competitive analysis. It took 3 days of casual social media reconnaissance to map her patterns. She volunteered at a literacy nonprofit downtown, had lunch every Tuesday at a French cafe near the Pinnacle offices, posted frequently about her rescue dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit. Her engagement photos showed someone genuinely happy and completely trusting. On Tuesday, I walked into that French cafe, ordered a coffee, and positioned myself 2 tables away from her usual spot. She arrived at noon, exactly, punctual like most people in client-facing roles, and settled in with a salad and her phone. I waited until she'd finished eating, then approached with the casual confidence of someone making a networking connection. "Excuse me, you're Clara Haynes, right?" She looked up, surprised but polite. "Yes?" "I'm Nate Carter. I think we have a mutual acquaintance." I offered my hand. "Dylan Ross?" Her expression shifted, friendly but cautious now. "Oh, you know Dylan?" "We go way back. He never mentioned the Riverside Plaza project, the construction job where he had that accident." She gestured to the empty chair. "Please sit. He doesn't talk about it much, but I know it was traumatic." I sat down, maintaining the relaxed posture of someone making pleasant conversation. "I'm sure it was. I was there when the scaffolding came down. Actually, I was the one who pulled him out." Clara's eyes widened. "You're the one who saved him? Oh my God. Dylan showed me the news articles. You're a hero." "Just did what anyone would do?" I took a sip of coffee, letting the moment settle. "How is Dylan? Haven't seen him in years." "He's wonderful. Busy, but wonderful." Her smile was genuine, completely unaware of the system's failure happening in her fiancé's life. "We're actually getting married next spring." "Congratulations, that's amazing." "Thank you. It's been a long engagement, but we wanted to wait until his position at Pinnacle was secure." "Smart planning." I paused as if something had just occurred to me. "Hey, I'm organizing a reunion for some of the guys from that project. Would Dylan be interested? I've been trying to track everyone down." "That's so thoughtful." She pulled out her phone immediately. "Let me give you his number. Actually, you know what? Let me just text him right now. Put you two in touch directly." Perfect. I watched her type rapidly, completely trusting, managing the introduction with the efficiency of someone accustomed to facilitating business connections. When she finished, she looked up with that same warm smile. "He'll be so happy to reconnect. That incident really changed his perspective on life, you know? Made him realize what's important." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I bet it did." We chatted for a few more minutes about the weather, her nonprofit work, my consulting business. Then I thanked her for lunch, promised to stay in touch about the reunion, and left. My phone buzzed before I reached my car. Unknown number. "This is Dylan." "Dylan, it's Nate Carter." Silence. Long enough that I thought he might have hung up. "I just had coffee with your fiancée," I continued. "Nice woman, really nice. She told me all about your wedding plans." "Nate, listen." "No, you listen." My voice stayed level, professional. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop dodging Elise's calls. You're going to meet her somewhere public and end things properly. And you're going to stay far away from both of us." "I never meant—" "I don't care what you meant. I care what you did." I climbed into my truck. "You've got 24 hours. After that, Clara gets a very interesting phone call about your recent extracurricular activities." "You wouldn't—" "Try me." I hung up and drove back to the office, feeling the satisfaction of a perfectly executed deployment. That night, Elise called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. On the 5th try, I answered. "What?" "He called me," she said breathlessly. "Dylan called. He wants to meet." "Good for you." "Nate, he said you threatened him. What's going on? What did you do?" "Nothing illegal, nothing immoral. Just reminded him about some facts he'd forgotten." I switched the phone to my other ear. "Enjoy your closure, Elise." She started to respond, but I ended the call and blocked her number. Miles thought I was taking unnecessary risks. "You're just going to let them work it out?" "They're not working anything out," I said. We were at the gym again, my new stress management protocol. Dylan's in damage control mode. He's going to cut her loose before Clara finds out. But what if Clara doesn't find out? She will eventually. I loaded more weight onto the bar. People like Dylan always create multiple failure points, and when she does find out, it'll be on Dylan's timeline, not mine. Clean hands. You're playing a long game. Only game worth playing. Dylan met Elise at a coffee shop in Fremont. I know because she posted about it cryptically on Facebook. A photo of 2 coffee cups with the caption, "Sometimes the hardest conversations are the most important ones." The comments were full of supportive friends telling her how strong she was, completely misreading the situation. I learned the details later through Miles, who heard it from a mutual friend. Dylan had been efficient and brutal. He told her they'd made a mistake, said his life was too complicated for a relationship, wished her well, and left her sitting there with 2 full coffees and a completely shattered narrative. She tried calling me again, left voicemails, sent emails, even showed up at my office building. Each attempt was more desperate than the last. I made a mistake. We can fix this. You're my husband, Nate. Doesn't that mean anything? Please just talk to me. It meant a lot. It meant 9 years of building a life together. It meant believing in someone who ultimately saw me as temporary infrastructure. It meant enough to hurt, but not enough to revert the changes I'd implemented. Patricia filed the divorce papers the following Monday. She has 90 days to respond, she told me. If she contests it, we go to court. She'll probably contest it, but we have a strong position. No kids, minimal shared property, and your stock options are still unvested, so they remain separate property. Unless she wants to drag this out for spite, it should be straightforward. Spite is her specialty. Then we prepare for a comprehensive legal strategy. But Elise surprised me. She didn't contest the papers, didn't fight the separation. She signed and returned them through her lawyer with minimal modifications. We split our limited shared assets, furniture, kitchen equipment, wedding gifts, and agreed to separate with no alimony requirements on either side. She's being reasonable, Patricia said, suspicious. That worries me more than if she were fighting. Why? Because reasonable usually means strategic. She might be planning something. Let her plan. I'm done with reactive troubleshooting. The divorce was finalized 3 months later, quietly and without drama. I got the house, the business assets, my truck. She got her car, her career, and whatever dignity she could salvage from the social aftermath. I thought that was the end of the system recovery. I was wrong. The call came from Miles at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. Turn on the news. I fumbled for the remote, still half asleep. What channel? Any of them. I scrolled through until I found it. Pinnacle Development under investigation for financial misconduct. The Chiron scrolled across the bottom, while a reporter stood outside the company's downtown headquarters, looking serious and official. Allegations of embezzlement and fraudulent accounting practices, the reporter was saying. The investigation was triggered by a whistleblower complaint filed last week. While names haven't been released, sources say the complaint came from someone with intimate knowledge of the company's financial operations. I sat up in bed. Clara? Has to be, Miles agreed over the phone. Who else would have access? But how did she find out about Dylan and Elise? I don't know, man, but this is getting complicated. That afternoon, Elise showed up at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd lost weight, her hair was pulled back severely, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. We need to talk, she said. We're divorced. We don't need anything. It's about Dylan. She pushed past me into the house, my house, in my life she no longer belonged in. He's blaming me for everything. The investigation, Clara leaving him, his career imploding. He says I ruined his life. You were just the affair partner, Elise. How could you ruin anything? She flinched at the clinical description. Clara found out about us. Someone sent her photos. Not me. I know it wasn't you, but Dylan thinks you orchestrated this whole thing. He's convinced you planned it from the beginning. I poured myself coffee, didn't offer her any. All I did was have coffee with Clara once. Mentioned I knew him from an old job site. That's it. Well, it's spiraling. He keeps calling, saying we're both going to pay, that he'll make sure everyone knows the truth. She stopped pacing, looked at me directly. Nate, I'm scared. I should have felt sympathy. Should have felt some residual protective instinct, but all I felt was tired. What do you want me to do about it? Talk to him, he'll listen to you. Why would he listen to me? Because he owes you his life. Her voice cracked. He told me about Riverside Plaza, about how you saved him. He's terrified of you, Nate. He thinks you're going to destroy him. I'm a systems architect who works 60 hours a week and drinks beer with my best friend on Fridays. I'm not destroying anyone. But you could. She sat down on my couch. You have leverage, the rescue story, everything. If you wanted to ruin him, you could. And why would I waste processing power on that? She didn't have an answer, but Dylan apparently did, because 3 days later, he showed up at my office with a camera crew. Not a legitimate news team, but something worse. One of those local expose shows that specialize in ambush journalism and manufactured drama. The kind with hosts who pretend to care about truth while actually farming controversy for ratings. I was leaving work around 6 when they rolled up. A van with logos, 2 cameras, and Dylan stepping out like he owned the parking lot. Nate Carter, he called, walking toward me with the cameras following. I think we need to have a conversation. Other employees stopped to watch. This was about to become very public, very quickly. You're on private property, I said calmly, pulling out my phone to record. You ruined my life! Dylan was wired, aggressive, playing to the cameras. You told Clara about Elise. You triggered the investigation. You've been orchestrating this from the beginning. I had coffee with your fiancé once. That's it. Liar. He was too close now, invading my personal space. You saved my life 5 years ago, and you've been holding it over my head ever since, waiting for the perfect moment to cash in. I didn't even remember your name until last month. You planned this, he jabbed a finger at me. The hero systems architect taking down the corrupt developer. Great story, right? Very David and Goliath. The cameras were eating it up, capturing his manic energy against my calm responses. Dylan, I said quietly, you need to leave. Or what? You'll ruin me more than you already have? He was practically shaking. My career is over. My engagement is over. I've lost everything because of you. No, you lost everything because you made bad choices. You cheated on Clara. You slept with my wife. You embezzled from your company. I didn't engineer any of that. I turned to the host, a woman in her 40s with too much hairspray. Unless you have a permit to film on private property, you need to leave too. Mr. Carter, she said smoothly, extending a microphone. Do you deny that you've been manipulating? I'm calling security and the police. 5 seconds. They left. Dylan went with them, still shouting threats over his shoulder. My colleague stood in stunned silence until the van disappeared around the corner. The segment aired 2 days later. I didn't watch it, but Miles did and gave me the technical debrief. They'd edited it to make Dylan look unhinged, shouting, shaking, making wild accusations while I stayed calm and professional. Then they'd done background research on Riverside Plaza, found the old news footage of my commendation, interviewed other guys who'd been on site that day. The story they constructed wasn't the one Dylan wanted. It was about a systems architect who'd saved a man's life and asked nothing in return, while that same man went on to betray him in the worst possible way. You look good, Miles said. Really good. They painted you as the victim who took the high road. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, that's exactly why it works. The segment went moderately viral. Not huge, but big enough that people in the tech industry started recognizing me. Clients called, wanting to work specifically with that architect from the news. My phone rang constantly with interview requests, podcast invitations, even a talk show that wanted me to confront Dylan on air. I declined everything, but the damage to Dylan was permanent and systemic. Pinnacle fired him before the investigation concluded. Clara's family issued a statement cutting all professional ties. The embezzlement charges turned out to be completely legitimate. He'd been skimming from project budgets for years, hiding money in offshore accounts that Clara's lawyers discovered during their separation. And Elise lost her job. Not fired exactly, but restructured out of her position after the publicity made her toxic. PR managers can't have affairs with engaged executives and survive the optics. Her industry was small, and everyone talked. Through Miles and the gossip network, I learned she'd moved back in with her mother, was working retail while she figured out her next move, had gained weight, and stopped updating her social media presence entirely. I didn't feel good about it, didn't feel bad either, just felt complete. 6 months after the divorce finalized, she showed up one last time. I'd moved to a condo in Belltown with a view of the Sound, smaller than the house, but newer, cleaner, mine. Paid for with the proceeds from consulting contracts that had increased dramatically since the news coverage. I was on the balcony with coffee when the front desk called. "Mr. Carter? Elise is here. Should I send her up?" Curiosity won. "Yeah, send her up." She looked different. Older, tired, stripped of the polished armor she'd once worn so effectively. "Nice place," she said, looking around. "It works." "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I was cruel to you. I mocked you, threw you away like you were nothing. You didn't deserve that." "No, I didn't. I thought Dylan was everything you weren't, but he was just a different kind of broken." "We all are," I said. "I lost everything, my job, my reputation, my friends. People whisper everywhere I go." She paused. "But maybe we could start over. Not as a couple, just friends. You could put in a good word for me in the industry." "You are who they think you are," I said. "Someone who cheated, lied, and kicked her husband out for another man." "I've changed." "Maybe, but that's not my problem anymore." "You told me to disappear," I reminded her. "So I did. Everything that happened after that, those were your choices." She stood there, and I saw the exact moment she realized it was truly over. "I really did love you," she whispered. "I know, but love wasn't enough." "What should I do now?" "Whatever you want. It's not my job to debug your life anymore." I opened the door. "Goodbye, Elise." Back on the balcony, the water glittered under the morning sun. My phone buzzed with updates. A new contract approved, Miles wanting to grab drinks Friday, Patricia confirming that all legal matters were officially closed. Then the intercom again. "Mr. Carter, Dylan Ross is here. He's being insistent." "Tell him I'm not available. If he returns, call the police." I blocked both their numbers, deleted their contact information, removed them from my professional network connections. Whatever guilt or desperation they carried wasn't mine to process anymore. I hadn't destroyed them. I'd simply stopped protecting them from themselves. Dylan chose to embezzle and cheat. Elise chose betrayal and deception. Every consequence was the direct result of their own system failures. And me? I chose survival, boundaries, and strategic thinking. No elaborate revenge schemes, just letting the truth execute its own processes. 6 months later, I was leading a team of 20 engineers, had equity in a company preparing for a $2 billion IPO, and was dating a brilliant security researcher named Rachel, who understood both technical architecture and human reliability. The best part? None of it was revenge. It was just life, properly engineered, finally running on clean code.